The Urban Society for Aboriginal Youth, or USAY, is a youth organization that helps urban Aboriginal youth. We focus on youth 12 to 29 years of age. Our mandate is to help urban Aboriginal youth succeed in urban living and live a healthy and sustainable future.
The impact is really having a voice for the Aboriginal youth to kind of let people know what they're thinking, their views of what's going on in current events, and also in the past as well, in their history. So it's more of an outlet to let their voice be known. We do a lot of graphic design for the magazine, and it kind of came a discussion with how can we read an article on kind of the basically the way the old Aboriginal languages were kind of fading away. And it kind of triggered the idea of what can we do to engage youth into learning about their culture, and how can we package it up so that they'll be interested in it. The idea of a graphic novel came, and we thought that'd be a great idea. The girls at USAY worked on the funding for it. It came through.
So we did a series of focus groups with Aboriginal youth, and we asked them about a variety of programs, what kind of programs they were interested in. And the idea of a graphic novel kept resurfacing. So we sought out Canadian Heritage funding and decided to make it into a language tool. It's actually, graphic novels are becoming accepted as a learning tool, a resource tool to help kids read and different kinds of literacy. So we thought it would be appropriate for a language tool.
If our language dies, our culture dies. Right now, what I see so many young teenagers, the youths, they are turning to our culture, their culture. So yes, it will impact them, make them think this thing's very important, our language.
Characters, I want the audience to really emotionally invest in the characters in the story, because they'll be going through some very real things that we see much too often, and I think it has to be shared, because in healing, like, one of the first things you got to do is expose the poison, and then you can let the healing begin and stuff. You can be in denial only for so long before things will creep up behind you if you have issues that you're not dealing with. So I'm hopefully go no holds barred, realistic story that people will relate to, especially the ones that are hurting the most, the ones on the very bottom, the people out there that are suffering the most. The integrity of the artist that has always been drilled into me is you do it for the people on the bottom. It's for them. So that's who I am hoping that the story will focus for, and done in a beautiful language, like the concept of the whole novel being in Blackfoot really lifted my spirits. So I'm really pumped and psyched and fired up to put everything I have into this story.
Speaking our language, it's so easy, but writing it, that's our challenge. It's certain words we don't have. Criminal record. I have to find certain words that comes with that or closest to that. These are our challenge. Even simple words which we don't have in our language.
And as the project winds down, I think that this was one pilot project that was very successful for USAY, and I hope to do another graphic novel in the future. In 2001, they thought it was really important to focus just specifically on youth, because they have very diverse issues and barriers, but also successes, interests that aren't the same as elders or adults, you know. So really focusing on what matters to youth and programs and services that help them overcome barriers that they experience.
2011 BGN, Blackfoot graphic novel. It was the pilot project, so we learned a lot through that process. Last year, the story was kind of written, and there was a bit of complexity in transferring that language to Blackfoot. Whereas this year, we're going to change it up so that the story will flow differently depending on the Blackfoot version of it. But we're really going to make sure that as much of the Blackfoot language as possible gets translated on the page, so that it really becomes a learning tool to get youth interested in the language. it's a way for them to get their voice heard that otherwise wouldn't be heard. So it's a very important piece of, I think, the Calgary landscape. The difference with the 2012 BGN, first off, it's still the same writer. We've got Marshall Lee George doing the story, and it's called Hunter. And really it's a story about preserving the Blackfoot culture, both the language and just the traditional beliefs of the culture. So what it is, Hunter is a hunter of the future, and he kind of goes back and forth between time to kind of bring back the culture into the future and kind of keep the language alive, keep the culture alive, and the lessons that are learned kind of in between. The technical aspects of it are different, is that we don't have actually last year we had two very talented artists to create it. This year we're using physical actors, taking their picture, green screening it, and then creating different backgrounds and animating it all. So it's a new process, and hopefully it all works out.
When to be a play, we want the play to have a meaning. We want it to be based in traditional Aboriginal values, to have comedy, humor, to be really interesting and unique, to have something that has language in it, but to have it in a modern, new, interesting way, like a graphic novel or a film, or something that really brings out that traditional Aboriginal value base. Some of the challenges we see for Aboriginal youth are around intergenerational trauma. So you see a lot of impacts from residential schools. You know, some of the things we see at USAY are just symptoms of those problems. You know, in residential schools, Aboriginal parents, well, their parents now, the youth we see, were stripped of their language, made to feel ashamed of their culture, and, you know, sometimes in some cases lacked parenting skills because they were raised in an institution. So we see a lot of symptoms from that, and they're very complex barriers, very multi-barriered youth that we see. So, you know, we're seeing high unemployment and teen pregnancy and addictions issues and stuff like that, which are just really symptoms of intergenerational trauma. So we're really trying to focus on healing the larger problem, and so that we don't see as many of the symptoms of that problem. My name's Leanne Ireland. I'm the Executive Director here at USAY. I've been here since 2008. My role is quite diverse. I do everything from funding and daily operations to budgets and cash flows, which I know everyone loves so much. I really work in a strategic way with other community agencies and on a strategic level with community level initiatives, including the Aboriginal Youth Education Strategy at United Way, a collaborative program with Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA of Calgary. And really my role is just to get all the supports possible and understand all of the trends, whether they be positive or negative, facing our Aboriginal youth, and make them into programs that support those Aboriginal youth to live healthy and sustainable lifestyles. And that's really what we do here, and that's my primary role, is just to focus, always put the focus back onto Aboriginal youth and to understand exactly what they need and how USAY can accommodate those needs.
My name is John Medeiros. I'm the managing editor of New Tribe magazine, and on the second version of the Blackfoot graphic novel, I was asked to kind of work with it to create the new version of it, which we did through photography turning into animation. So I became the creative director for the Blackfoot graphic novel Part 2, and now I'm working on the Blackfoot graphic novel Part 3, which is a storyline based on a zombie apocalypse happening here in Calgary, and 4 young Aboriginal youth have to fight their way through the zombie population in Calgary, as well as kind of learn some lessons along the way to get to a safe environment. So the biggest reward of this project is seeing the youth interaction, that someone's actually involved in providing a resource for them to become engaged in preserving their language and doing it in a way that becomes interesting to them, in this regards, a graphic novel. They really enjoy kind of seeing something they enjoy, comics, graphic novels, written in their own language and learning their own history as well. So the feedback we've heard so far from the youth, we've had feedback from regular people on the street who have been overwhelmingly positive about the storyline, about the process, about the really about the project itself, why we're doing it, and really the reasons why. And they agree 100% with it, and they love the way we're doing it. They love the storyline. They love the way we're giving it towards themes that youth are engaged with. And also the people that are involved in the actual production of it, they also love the whole process, learning a new field, the storylines, why we're trying to preserve the language, because it's their language as well. And overall it's been, I would say, 100% positive.
I think that the Blackfoot graphic novel fits in well with USAY's existing programs because we do a lot of publications and artwork already. We focus a lot on how youth can be engaged in learning about themselves and learning about their culture through art. And this is just another kind of version of that. The great part though, and which makes the graphic novel unique, is that it's in Blackfoot language. And there's just so few resources in our community that focus on native languages and really have youth engaging in a way that's with the language, which is a really important part of the future of the graphic novel. I hope will continue. We initially always thought that this would be a series of graphic novels that would create almost like a resource library. And the more positive response and the better we actually get at creating the graphic novel, the more that vision, that original dream of creating that digital library and that graphic novel library and all those Blackfoot language resources, it becomes closer and more achievable. So I think it's really one of those projects that we can continue into the future and find funding for to make sure it's strong and really a key part of what we do here at USAY.
Step back from it, but keep your feet there. And I kind of want you to just do this. Like, you're here, and I want you to do this. Like, as far as you can from it, but not.
So as close as you can, it's better. I've got it going right now. So Blackfoot graphic novel. Excellent. We're good to go. You guys are ready?
Hi, I'm Leanne Ireland. I'm the Executive Director here at the Urban Society for Aboriginal Youth. I've been here almost 10 years now, and I'm super excited that we're going to have our 5th volume of the Blackfoot graphic novel, Thunder. We've been working with Randy, this great Blackfoot elder in our community, for the last 2 years. And last year he suggested that maybe the best way to stay authentic to the Blackfoot language was to start with a Blackfoot story and then translate it into English. And really this project is about being authentic to the Blackfoot language, not being authentic to the English language. And so we really took that to heart, and what we did was we brought in a group of Aboriginal youth and we had them listen to the story, this more traditional Aboriginal story, and we asked them, is this what you guys picture as the Blackfoot graphic novel this year? And what we heard back was this resounding yes, that they wanted something that was more traditional, that was more reflective of culture, that was more reflective of being a Blackfoot person, and that you were also learning the language but at the same time learning a traditional story. And they really liked that element of it. In the past we've done more of these more urban contemporary stories, which have been fantastic, but in this case I think it really promotes a Blackfoot story and a Blackfoot history that is going to be unique to this project. So obviously this project doesn't happen without lots of different team players, different people that have different roles in the project, and we're so lucky to have Randy. He's been such a great asset to the project, but it's also important not to underestimate his wife and partner, Anita. She is a very powerful woman leader in our community, and she speaks and writes Blackfoot, and that's really important because she was the main translator for the written parts that you see in the graphic novel. And what's great is that they're this really dynamic team, and in traditional Aboriginal culture it's all about having a balance between the female and male aspects in our community and the strengths that we each bring to different projects. And I think that that's really highlighted with their partnership, because he speaks the language and he's this dynamic youth leader, and she writes the language and speaks the language, and she's also a dynamic youth leader, but they bring different roles and different strengths to the project, and that's been really powerful and meaningful to the project as well. So we're just really lucky to have them as this great team and this duo working with us. It's really important that people understand that there's this wonderful DVD attached to the Blackfoot graphic novel. I have this fear that it's often overlooked, and ultimately we want to have people hear the language and just absorb it into their soul and absorb it into who they are, and have it be part of them, because Blackfoot is really a language that needs to be heard. And I think that's the best part of this project is the DVD and the animation and that aspect of it. The artwork is beautiful, and the art that the kids put together is magnificent, and each of those individual pages are beautiful. But ultimately, we want people to hear the language and care about it and just absorb it. And so really trying to push the DVD this year and really promote it, and so that's the biggest part of this project. Thanks to the generosity of Canadian Heritage, all the copies of the Blackfoot graphic novel and included DVD are completely free. That means you can get them at community agencies, at schools, and especially at USAY. All you need to do is call our office or connect on our website, and you can get a free copy today.
Well, my name Sakukutu was given to me by my father. That was my great-grandfather's name. And my great-grandfather got the name from his great-grandfather, and my dad was able to go back about 2 centuries and talked about the history of the name. Now, the reason why the name is so special is that in the future, either one of my sons, grandsons, or male relatives wants to take this sacred journey that I went on, then I would have to give up that name. So the name would continue with that individual, and then in the future, they would be doing the same thing. Now, the importance of having names is that once you give that name to another individual, there is a ceremony that's involved, and also the teachings that go along with the name, because then you have responsibilities. This is how it was told to me, that in translation, whoever was translating the name bottle, Sakukutu is the name, but if you add at the end tusku, Sakukutusku, then it is a bottle. But Sakukutu means either clear ice or crystal.
A Blackfoot, it's such a complex language. It's not meant to be written, which is, first of all, the main struggle for writing a story in Blackfoot. So the Blackfoot dictionary was actually written by a German, and he lived among the Blackfoot people, and he wrote the dictionary, and his culture's always been fascinated with First Nations culture. So he immersed himself in the language and wrote the dictionary from a German perspective, I would say, because I think one of the reasons why Blackfoot is so hard to read and so mispronounced is because the P's are actually B's, the T's are actually D's, the K's are actually G's, unless they're followed by an S.
Hi, I am Siobhan Weaselhead, and I am going to be telling the story of Napi joins the mouse dance. Napi found a Bunagaskal. He heard Ganaskina, Ankski, and Aintspia inside of it. He looked inside where the Ganaskina were holding each other's paws and Aintspia in a circle. Napi asked if it could join the dance. The mice said, Sa. Napi said, Nitiget. The head mouse said, Nitiget and Busabut. Napi's body was too big, so he just put Otagon inside the Bunagaskal and shook his head up and down in beat with the music. The Ganaskina Ankski all day and night for 2 days. Finally, Napi asked, How long do you dance? 4 days, replied the mice, but you must not fall asleep. Napi got tired and fell asleep. The mice chewed all the hair on his otogan. That is how bald people came into being. When Napi awoke, the Ganaskina were gone and he could not get the Bunagaskal off. Napi walked over a steep bank and fell into a nitan and floated downstream. People from nearby camp saw him and shouted, Here comes a Bunaga. Napi pretended to holler like a Bunaga. An old woman was scared and she beat the skull with a stick and broke the Bunaga skull open. The old woman was surprised to find Napi instead. That is how Napi got the Bunaga skull off.